selected, even though it's set in three-dimensional space, between dot 1, dot 2, dot 3, and dot 4, there is essentially a two-dimensional face that exists inside of this. And what that allows me to do is it'll allow me inside my UV texture editor here to actually edit the face and apply a texture to it. Essentially U and V, like we have X, Y, and Z when we're working in three-dimensional space, U and V is a two-dimensional space based off of a three-dimensional object. So essentially each one of these faces has its own UV that it ends up using. And the best way to show that here is that when I select this object, you'll notice how each one of these are kind of mapped out on a two-dimensional space. Now I'm going to show you right now what we would get if we were to texture this thing. Let me just go ahead and open up my Hypershade real quick, and that'll allow you to see exactly what I'm currently working with. I'm going to open up my Hypershade, and currently I just have your generic default blend that's applied to it right now. Actually, it's a Lambert. So what I'm going to do is, now opening this up, I'm just going to create your typical Maya node. I'll just create a blend. And with this blend selected here, I'm just going to open up the attributes editor by hitting Control A. Once that pops open, here we go. And then I'm going to click on color, and by hitting this little checker box here, it'll pop up a new window for which I can create something that it should connect to. It's kind of slow on me tonight. There we go. And I'm just going to apply a checker piece matte to it, and you'll notice now that this updates to a checker. It's now using a place two-dimensional texture node. And you can see that all right here. If I was to, here, let me reorganize these so we can see them effectively. There you go. Now you'll notice here my blend has the Hypershade checker 1 attaching into the blend, as well as the place two-dimensional texture 1 going into this texture, essentially this checker texture, which then applies it to the shader, which is this portion here. This essentially is how this is the node that controls how my checker texture is actually applied over the surface of my object. Now real quick, let me just show you what happens when we have our UVs that are kind of just all over the place, like they are, for instance, in this current window. I've left my computer on too long, I think. I need to reboot eventually here. Using up too many system resources. Alright, there we go. Essentially, you'll notice here that my UVs are just discombobulated all over the flippin' wazoo. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to select this object here, and I'm going to right-click on my Lambert here, and do Assign Material to Selection. Notice now that my checker pieces have now been applied within this grid zone here. Let me pop this up large so you can see. Essentially, my checker now takes up this whole right quadrant section, the second quadrant of this Cartesian plane, and you'll notice that my UVs are stretched across a checker in these various different ways. You can't really tell inside the UV texture editor how this screws everything up, but I'm about to show you inside of Maya itself. Let me just go ahead and close the Hypershade. We're not going to be using that anytime soon. Now, inside this here, you'll notice that my blend has now been applied. As you can see, how it's kind of creating this anthropotropic kind of effect going on here. Now let me just quickly apply or change my rendering settings. So I'm just going to hit 6 on my keyboard, and you'll notice that now that ended up updating it. And you'll notice now here that the texture is unevenly distributed across the entire setup we have going on here. This is not effective texturing at all, and pretty much destroys our whole capability, which sucks. So what we're going to do, and let me just see if I can kind of fit this so you can see it effectively. And let's just pop that up bigger. Yeah, there we go. And then I'll just zoom in on this. Alright, so essentially what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this, go into object mode, make sure I have object mode selected, and then now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of minimize this window and see if we can run on 2 at the same time. Helps when you have a widescreen. Crap. Too many applications open at the same time. Alright, here we go. So essentially I'm just going to select this gun here, and you'll quickly notice what it ends up doing both to the UV texture editor here as well as the gun model over here on the right. I'm just going to go down until I come to my automatic projection and click on that. You'll notice immediately that over here on the right you see all of my UVs have now updated. They've kind of split